Hello everyone, good morning. This is live episode, weekend 2, isn't it, of the lockdown 2.0. Right, let's see who is online. I've got 3 questions which have been submitted this week. If you are watching live, if you go in the comments and just click like, love, haha, wow, share the post, and if you can let me know if you can hear me, just write in the comments if you can hear me. We will get going in just a moment. How is everyone? It was really rainy, wasn't it, this morning? And then suddenly it has become a little bit sunny. I'm just going to go in here and pop the questions up as well for you all. Do let me know where you're watching and if you can hear me, please. So just pop in the questions here so you guys can see them. Maybe that's not the best place to pop up. There would be the better place. We're not doing a poll, are we? It's not yet. So this is the first question that I have had submitted. Not many of you live today. Hopefully you are watching back. So if you can hear me, just let me know, guys. Pop that in the comments. Not sure if I can see your comments or not yet. I've got a feeling you are all on a different feed to me. If you can hear me, just let me know, guys. Right, that is weird. You are all on a different feed to me. So, if someone can write, yes, this is going to be a challenge. I'm not going to be able to see your comments or what I'm saying or anything like that. If someone can write pancakes right now, I'm just going to run another feed off so I can see you guys. This is a little confusing, but we'll get through. This is what live broadcasts are all about. Glad my radio appearance the other week was a little bit simpler than this. I'm quite happy with the lighting and camera. Cool, pancakes. Everyone has pancakes. So we've got Emma here, Mikey, Beefit Aberdeen, Kate. Yes, hopefully we're going to have more of you joining. Remember, click like, love, haha, wow. Please press share. If you can write a little message with that share, that would be fantastic. This is a bit confusing because basically it looks like I have multiple live streams going out. We're on YouTube as well. And it looks like we're on Facebook twice, which is exciting, isn't it? So I can only see this one feed, so if I miss your question, I am very, very sorry. The first question we had submitted was around DOMS, okay? Let's get straight into things. DOMS is delayed onset muscle soreness. And basically, this is a sign for us realistically. This is the thing that people often say, oh, if I don't get DOMS, then my session hasn't been good. It's not been a worthwhile session. Now, for DOMS, it's not just about a marker of your session intensity, your difficulty, or your training that you did. DOMS is a combination of things, and it shouldn't be used as the only marker, the single marker of how difficult your training session has been. It's a useful one. But in order to have a good training session, a training session that has kind of paid dividends, worked really well. Emma, I know you work in finance, so my apologies if I've misused the term dividends there. You don't necessarily have to have DOMS. Not every training session will create DOMS, and that's absolutely fine. At the same time, you don't need to fear DOMS. Feardom, isn't it? That's funny. Harry joining us over on Instagram. I'm over on Facebook multiple times where you can ask questions as well. Harry, do so. But basically, with the kind of prevalence of DOMS, it's not something that should stop you from training. It's not something which you think, I've got DOMS, I won't train today, I'll wait till that DOMS passes. We know that this muscle soreness will occur at its peak, at its very most, 2 days later. I did some chest for the first time in about 10 months. And I did that last Sunday. And I've still got, look at that, I can't even move my arm behind my line, basically, of my shoulder because it's too painful. I'm a bit of a wimp, aren't I? So with that in mind, you need to think, okay, I'm going to have some muscle soreness, or I'm likely to have muscle soreness a day or 2 days later. If I'm not comfortable with training on top of that DOMS, can I use a different part of the body? Can I do a different training session to account for this? This is where these muscle body splits occurred from, which bodybuilders often utilize, which is like you have your upper body day and your lower body day, or push and pull, all of these different kind of things. But basically, A, you can train through DOMS. B, DOMS isn't the only marker of a good session. There's loads of other things. And C, you can just alternate your training area, basically, so you don't have to do those things. It's also worthwhile, if you're feeling that you have an enormous amount of DOMS in a particular area of the body, which occurs again and again and again, you probably need to address your training program. Particularly if you're a newbie, if you're new to this training, you'll find it more difficult. So like, I haven't trained chest, for example, for 10 months. It wouldn't probably be appropriate for me to try and train chest twice in a week. Give it like 6 weeks of consistent training. I could quite happily go off and train chest multiple times in a week and have no ill effects. Right, if that was useful, please click like, love, wow, press share. There were 6 of us online. Last week we had loads of interaction, so it'd be great if we have some more people coming back. I am also aware that I'm running, it looks like 5 different streams at the moment, so I might be missing questions. If Kate, if you are watching, if you can find out where the other streams are going, so are you watching on the Facebook? Are there two Facebook streams running on the main Performance Physique Facebook page? If there are any questions going there, please, can you do me a favor and help direct it over here? Or send them the link to this one, whatever. Thank you very, very much. Harry, you're watching over on Instagram. Do ask any questions. I'll answer them as best as I possibly can. If you're watching live, remember you have the advantage. You can ask your questions. Now, the second question I had raised today was around programming a race. So basically, this individual has a 10-mile race coming up, and they want to know how they should run it. So how should they go about coming to race day? Do I run a consistent split for the 10 miles? Do I run faster at the end than I started? All of these different components. And the truth of the matter is, it depends on the type of athlete you are. There is an ideal circumstance, and that ideal circumstance is that we have what we call a progressive run. It's exactly like it sounds on the tin. It's Ron Seal. We basically want to see you improving as time goes on. Now, progressive running isn't for everyone, but it is kind of your ideal situation. And when you watch the Olympics and those kind of things, and they say, oh, that person ran a negative split, that's what they're talking about, the second half of the run being faster than the first half. Now, the advantage that this poses to us is that it gives you an enormous warm-up period. It gives you this opportunity to really get ready to run. Most of us just go off and run, they forget the warm-up because it's boring. I appreciate it is boring. But you will find that if you dedicate 2 kilometers minimum to a warm-up, slower pace, it actually gets you ready to run, and you will maximize your performance later on. Now, something with a 10-miler, you could actually stretch out that warm-up routine to possibly about 4 kilometers. So if it was I in that 10-mile race, I would be starting off with basically someone going at a very slow pace. I appreciate you might have race excitement, and therefore you want to do your very best and run really fast at the start. So you won't be able to run at easy pace, but try to find something a little bit slower. We often refer to this as marathon pace. and as the title suggests as well, it's basically something you can maintain for a marathon. So for example, my easy pace is 6 minutes a kilometre. My marathon pace is about 5:45. Realistically, come race day, I'm going to be excited and I'm not going to run the first 2 kilometres at 6 minutes. But maybe I can behave and run something in the late 5:30s, maybe a 5:40 for 2 kilometres. And I gradually start increasing my speed as the kilometres go. The way I would also plan this, now this is a really detailed thing, and I've actually built a spreadsheet just last week on how to program this, because I thought it would be really useful to me because I'm a coach, funnily enough. But basically, when you take your step up, stay at that pace then for 2 to 3 kilometres, then take your next step up, stay at that pace. And we're progressing really, really slowly through our kilometres, or moving quickly through the kilometres, but increasing that speed very slowly. And therefore, when it comes towards, so 10 miles, 16 kilometres, when it comes to like kilometres 12, onwards, we can have this decision basically. This decision being, okay, how am I feeling right now? Do I need to now just stick at what my target pace would have been? So for example, maybe your target pace, if you ran everything even, was 5:02. Can I go past that? Or do I just need to hold back? You can make these decisions on race day. No one can ever make these decisions ahead of you. Things are always different on race day. But at around kilometre 12, I will be making that assessment, and in ideal circumstances, okay, I'm going to push on. I'm now going to aim towards my actual even split. And with about 3 kilometers to go, I can make my decision of, okay, can I really push, or do I need to actually take a step back? If you need to take a step back, then take a step back with 3 kilometers to go, hold it nice and even. With 2 kilometers to go, you then push as hard as you possibly can. Ideal circumstance, we haven't needed to hold our pace, and we just keep pushing, pushing and pushing, and we actually drop below our threshold pace, which would be our, say our 5 minutes and 2 seconds for your 16 kilometers, and you push on. But basically the message is progress it upwards, start very slow, make sure you take 2 to 3 kilometers per each stage. Hit like, love, haha, wow, if you found that interesting. We're answering nutrition, running, training, fitness questions. Emma says, it looks like there's 3 streams on Facebook. That's really generous of you, Facebook. Thank you very much. I am therefore only seeing messages for those people who are watching on this one, which is Emma, Kate, Mikey, James, Harry, BG Nazir. But if you just go to the Performance Physique Facebook page, maybe you will see your stream there. Please, please, please do ask questions. I'll answer live questions here. So James Slattery, hello James, how are you? Where are you watching from? Danny is here as well. Excellent, Danny. Hello, Danny, Annabelle, Jessica, Ben, don't forget Ben. James Slattery, post-lockdown and coming back after a month off from the gym, are we going to be a lot behind in terms of, just lost the second part of your question, in terms of weight and resistance training? James, it depends. This is a really, really good question. If you are still watching live, James, if you can just write a little bit about what your kind of weight and resistance training was prior. So were you doing really heavy weights and doing 5 repetitions, or were you doing like 10 to 15 repetitions, 3 sets? Give me a little bit of background. Basically, we should all expect to see a drop in performance, basically, for weight resistance. We do lose that stimulus, but actually a lot of our training performance is neuromuscular. So it's just about the firing pattern from your brain to your muscles. So you can actually very often recover that very, very quickly. It depends also on, and we spoke about this last week, but on your protein intake. So if your protein intake has been really high over the last few weeks anyway, or during lockdown, that actually stimulates muscle protein synthesis, so basically muscle building. So it helps reduce the loss of muscle mass. That's really interesting area of research. It has nowhere near the effect that weight training does, but it's a useful one. In terms of returning back into that kind of environment and going back into the gym and training really hard, a lockdown of 9 months means that you need to basically almost re-taper in towards it. So if you're training 3 times a week, that's fine. But if you were used to training 5 times a week and hitting one of those muscle parts, or muscles, body parts, combine those two, don't I? Twice a week, you probably want to lay off from that and just give yourself ample recovery. Remember, your recovery time is where your muscle tissue grows. It gets the stimulus over here in the gym, but it's the recovery which really makes the difference and helps you grow. Here we go. Watching from Birmingham, thank you for answering my question. No problem at all. I'm 160 pound in weight, and as an example, I deadlift about 160 kilograms for 5 sets of 5 reps. Yes, James, really strong. So 160 pounds, you're like 77, it's about 77 kilos, something like that. Quick math. So really strong. That's a performance measure. I mean, to be honest, all the performance measures for lifts are all made up. They're estimates, they're not based on any science, but that is a performance measure for lifting over 2 times your body weight. 5 sets, 5 reps, really good. James, I'm guessing you've been training for at least a couple of years. I think you'll find that you can recover similar amounts of strength in quite a short period of time because it's neuromuscular. It's not like you were developing foundational strength as such. There is a really new argument which suggests that base strength doesn't need to be trained. So going back to 4 sets of 10 repetitions doesn't need to be done. And in your case, if you have been training for a couple of years, James, I would suggest that you could probably do maybe 2 weeks worth of 8 repetitions, 4 to 6 sets, slightly lower weight. Just look after your tendon strength basically from doing that. And then you could probably return to 5x5 program. I'm guessing it's the 5x5 program you've been doing, and return quite easily. Just go off RPE, so rate of perceived exertion, how hard you're feeling you're working. And then obviously in terms of training day, hit protein, get protein up to 2 grams a kilo. Maybe a smidgen higher, no need. James, you're going to like this. Harry over on Instagram has said, Jesus, James Slattery, beast. Very good. Excellent, guys. Right, if that was answering your question, James, do let me know. If you like what we're hearing, you find this interesting, you have a nutrition, fitness, running, health, happiness question, post it in the comments. We're going to go to Harry's question over on Instagram in a second. 7 of you watching on this one stream, and it turns out we have 2 streams on YouTube, we have 3 on Facebook, and we have 1 on Instagram. So I am a busybody today. I'm just going to go and have a look at the other streams, just see what other questions have come in, just to make sure that I am not neglecting too many of you. Oh, cool. So Kate has checked in on the other one. Thank you very much, Kate. And then there's this one. This is crazy. Write those questions, people. If you have a question, I will answer all the live questions as a priority, okay? It is my priority to look after the live questions first. James says, yes, been training for a few years now. Really appreciate that. Also, thank you to you and Harry for the encouragement. No problem at all, James. Make sure, are you following us, James? If you are, I want to hear about it. I want you to let me know how you're getting on. Right, this question is from Harry. Harry is over in Vietnam. I hope it's sunnier than the last time we spoke when it was absolutely tipping it down, Harry. I've also been working on some questions for our interview, which would be really cool. So Harry says, what are your calories like at the moment, training and non-training days? Are you asking me specifically, Harry? Or is it the difference between the training and non-training days, which is the most important thing? I'll basically tell you the answer. For me personally, I'm not spending any time really training at all. I'm spending every waking moment working on the business. And when I mean working, every working hour, my working hours basically at the moment seem to be from 1:30 a.m. through till 10 p.m. So I don't sleep. Raining again, and I drove for 5 hours on a motorbike trip in the rain today. Oh my goodness, you must be drenched, Harry. Right, so in terms of calories on training and non-training days, this is a really, really interesting question. So thank you for bringing this up, Harry. This is massively different for endurance runners to weight trainers. So those people who are just doing gym work as opposed to doing extended bouts of cardiovascular training, which burn a lot of calories. Endurance athletes need to basically feed consistently. So you need to make sure that they're never really in a calorie deficit. You're always focusing on being at energy balance here, so you don't go into a surplus and gain weight, because that's dreadful basically. That is absolutely dreadful for endurance performance, because it will reduce your VO2 max, your fitness basically. And going into a calorie deficit is massively detrimental as well, because you'll start to feel tired. You will not have the energy to basically go off and run hard. But for weight training individuals, this might just mean the difference in about 200 to 300 calories, and you might actually just find the calorie swing there between your carbohydrate. You may choose to put your carbs on training days a little bit higher, and on non-training days increase the fat, increase the protein intake. But there doesn't need to be a massive swing unless you're in competitive sports performance or an endurance athlete between non-training and training days. It also does probably pay more of a difference for those who are doing weight training to monitor total protein intake. Total protein intake is really important. James, this might actually be interesting for you as well. So total protein intake being really important, but looking for muscle feeding every 3 to 4 hours. If you really, really want to niche down, get down to the specifics of how to develop muscle mass, we're looking for dairy and kind of lean meats, or basically meat, forms of protein being consumed every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day. Does this make a massive difference if you're not an elite athlete? Not at all. So therefore, total protein intake. So if we use James as an example, we're hitting 2 grams per kilogram of muscle, or of body weight is an easy way to do it. 2 grams, 2 times 77, so 2 times 75 is 150, and therefore, so like 154 grams of protein per day. James might not really have the time to separate that out into loads of different 4-hour bouts, and therefore just make sure at the end of the day, James has gotten to 154 grams. There you go, James, that's you sorted. I'll send the check. Or no, you send the check in the post, I'll send the invoice. Right, guys. Harry, if that has answered your question, let me know. If that hasn't, ask more questions. Please hit like, love, wow. If you haven't shared the feed, it would really help me. Basically, Facebook monitor and demonstrate who they want to put up on the kind of watch feed based on how much interaction there is during a live video. So it really does help when I see those coming through. If you have any questions as well, I would love to answer those. I'm on a roll. I was meant to be finishing at 11, but maybe I will just continue answering your questions as long as they keep coming in. Kate says, got a bad habit of eating sweets before running for a buzz, but probably not burning enough. If I switch to caffeine, when should I have a coffee espresso before a run to have an effect? What a great question. Love that question. So there is that payoff between consuming carbohydrate foods to go out and have a good performance, good run, and whether that will actually have a beneficial effect in the long term because you're consuming more calories perhaps than what you actually run. Caffeine is amazing. Caffeine is the absolute #1 thing that you can consume as long as you don't have bad, ill effects of consuming caffeine. First things first, look for liquid forms of caffeine. Don't start using caffeine tablets or anything like that because your overdosing chance is really high on it, basically. And it can be fatal. So there's your first warning. Do not use tablet form of caffeine or powdered form, just use drinks. Second, unless you're working with a professional, that is. The second thing is, we want to probably aim, and it's very, very individualized caffeine response, but probably aim for about 45 minutes before caffeine's going to have an effect. Now, the way I consider this is that, are you going to need caffeine to start your run? No, you're going to need caffeine to be having an effect slightly later on. Now, say we're having a strong-ish coffee, 95 milligrams of caffeine, that's going to be okay. We usually look at like 4 to 6, so let's be safe. Let's say 4 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight. And if I were you, I would be saying, right, 20 minutes before I run, I want to have an espresso or a couple of espressos, and then that means it will start having its effect 25 minutes in, say, 5K into the run, and it will maintain in your system for between 4 and 6 hours. So the half-life of caffeine basically means how long it stays around having an effect. This is why it can have an ill effect on sleep, is 4 to 6 hours. And therefore, we want to focus basically on consuming it a little bit before your time of run, but you don't want to have it ages and ages before, because you want it to be having an effect at the end of your run. Who here actually, press the fire emoji or the heart emoji if you're on Instagram, if you have caffeine for your performance. I'd be quite interesting, just a little survey immediately right now. And if you have any other questions, please do ask them away. I'm going to talk to you about carbohydrates in a minute as well. Let's see who has caffeine before they go off and run or go and train. Weight trainers as well, please answer that question. Let's see if we have any other questions flying around on all the different feeds. How chaotic, eh? No, not on that one. That's cool. Danny, normally I avoid caffeine but have a small coffee before races. Yeah, and you used it really well, didn't you, actually, on London Marathon Day, so well done, Danny. I like that. Did you have the buzz later on? Harry, pre-workout every day. Interesting. So that's probably something worthwhile noting as well. A lot of people do talk about needing to have a down period, 5, 6, 7 days off caffeine to have an effect. The majority of the recent research actually shows that you don't need a day off, and if you do require a day off from caffeine, it's just 24 hours, so 1 day off. I did the conversion there for you, for hours to days. But the responses to caffeine are some of the most individualized, and you're unfortunate, basically, if you don't tolerate caffeine very well, if it upsets your stomach, or if you're really, really very tolerable of caffeine. So I'm incredibly tolerable of caffeine, and it is probably to my downfall. I will happily go to sleep on caffeine. But if you can find yourself in the middle ground, so if someone's having a race, I would highly advise them to have a couple of days off caffeine, just in case that will increase their sensitivity to the caffeine. Not gastrointestinal, so they have an upset stomach, but just so that they can maximize their performance later on. Okay, I hope that answers your question. I hope that's really useful. Harry says, I have a relatively low stimulant one though, high pump and blood flow ingredients. Yes, there is vitamin E, NCE, so cysteine, basically really good things to give you a pump. Increase citrulline is good. Increasing blood flow gives you that look like you've been training really hard. Makes also oxygen availability minutely better. Right, any other questions, guys? Please pop them in the comments right now. I'm going to talk to you very quickly about something called the insulin myth. Awesome, Kate. So basically, the insulin myth is around carbohydrates. Carbohydrates being the thing that you make, or you consume, that make you fat. I'm not talking to you personally, don't worry. This gets branded about all the time, that consuming carbohydrate is the reason that you are overweight because insulin. And then they go on to try and explain how insulin works, and it's because it switches off fat burning. Okay, so carbohydrate is our preferred source of energy. That's completely true, and when it's available, we do decrease the amount that we burn from our fat stores. That's called being efficient and smart. It's not a replacement for thermodynamics. So thermodynamics are the reason we basically burn calories, burn energy, or increase our body weight. And it's for this purpose that we have to lay down our first rule for Insulin Myth. And there was a very, very interesting study quite recently done by a guy called Doctor Who. That sounds ridiculous. I read it. When I read the paper, I didn't even think about that. It's Doctor Who, H-U, not W-H-O. Can't believe I didn't actually recognize that when I was reading the paper until I've just said it. Anyway, Doctor Who did a study of loads of different participants in loads of different groups. Some were on 80% carbohydrate diets and some were on 5% carbohydrate diets, so that would be your ketogenic diet effectively. So ketogenic diet being high in fat, immensely high in fat, very, very low in carbohydrate. It's got a bit of a cult following for being the one to lose body fat, basically, but it's wrong. And basically, he compared all of these different groups. And the groups which were in these ketogenic or very high fat, very low carbohydrate groups, which were apparently the ones which are we allow fat burning to take place, we don't allow insulin to get in the way, were basically showing no difference whatsoever from the other groups. And interestingly, in this one group, in this big study, in this one group which actually had the highest consumption of carbohydrates, demonstrated the greatest loss of body fat. So greatest loss of body fat, not body mass, but body fat, and highest levels of satiety. So satiety being the thing that makes you feel full. As long as we haven't ruined our signaling, feeling full comes very often from carbohydrate foods, and that's what stops us from overeating, unless you've got incredibly strong willpower. And therefore, completely shoving this insulin hypothesis out of the way. So if you see people on Facebook, on Instagram, telling you that the reason high carb doesn't work is because insulin, basically. They usually say that, because insulin. It's just mumbo jumbo. They're sticking together a load of very technical terms which confuse people, and confusion leads to trust sometimes. What I'm saying is basically ignore that. It all comes down to thermodynamics. We'll have maybe some more words from Doctor Who next week. Mikey says, I'm heading down the beach for a walk or run. Do you have any experience with specific sand-based exercises? Mikey, I do indeed. The sand is great for your ankles. So if you have a beach nearby, or if you have the opportunity to, I would always do some lateral hopping, some forward and backwards hopping. Allowing your ankles to move, lots of movement in your ankles is very, very good for reducing chance of injury later on. And also you'll notice that it moves a lot, which requires your body to compensate. Your energy output will be slightly higher. I would definitely encourage you, as long as you've got no injuries that is, to do some jumping, do some hopping, some bouncing side to side, like I've said. Some little sprints in there will be useful. Just bear in mind that obviously because the unstable nature of the sand, you will have some movement kind of as your foot goes in, some lateral movements, which will potentially in the short term put more stress on your knees. But in the long term, it's actually really, really good for it. The last one I used to do with our junior athletes is get them walking in sand. Every time they walk, squeeze their toes together as hard as possible. So it's almost like you get cramp on the bottom of your foot, and then stretch their toes out as much as possible. Then we do some walks on tiptoes. It's really, really good though, Mikey, to try out some of those exercises. So good question. Right, it is 6 minutes past 11. If anyone has any other questions, please do post it right now. I will still answer your questions. If we're done, then I will stop speaking. But whilst you're writing your questions, writing any comments, please click like, love, haha, wow. I want to tell you about a few things that are coming up. So the strength training for runners app has been out for 3 weeks now, getting some amazing feedback. I had a text message the other day from, or not a text message, like there's a message thing on it, which basically is saying, I've been doing it for just over a week now and I'm getting benefits already. It's making a difference to my running, which is phenomenal. I'm really, really, really happy to see some feedback like that. The strength training app is basically, it's an 8-week program which is hosted on an app. You get the access for 8 weeks and it takes you through all of the exercises with a video, with timers, all of it. It's really great. And I've periodized it, so over the 8 weeks it progresses. We start doing some plyometrics. We do loads of things to improve your running performance. So it's to complement your running. Last week I offered this and I'm going to offer it again. Anyone who wants to sign up from here can do so with a 20% discount. So it's normally £167. Whatever 20% is, £132, something like that. So it works out as like £2.50 a session, £2.50 a training session, and you will learn everything that you need to do. So you can by all means stay on afterwards, but it will allow you to work out your own training for the future. So I do really, really recommend that. I will pop the link in the comments in a second for you to sign up for that, but there are loads of links all around the place for you to find that out yourself. Next up, we have some recipe books on the website. Actually, you can find them on Facebook. So if you're watching on Facebook, you can see our little shop area. And yesterday, I saw a message from a friend which basically said that I'm feeling really blue, I'm really down, I just want to do loads of cooking because it's raining and we're in lockdown. And therefore I thought, right, I'm going to put all of our recipe books, there's something like 4 or 5 recipe books, they're all 99p, you can grab those in the shop. This evening I will be switching that off. And then the last thing, I've done the same for winter beanies. So winter beanies, they're like $5.99 or something like that at the moment, the winter beanies. If you want to grab one of those, just go to the Facebook shop. But thank you very much for listening on Facebook. There's no more questions that are coming. Mikey, awesome, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that helped. I really did enjoy it. If you're if you're watching on one of the 3 streams, I apologize that I couldn't see your question. If I missed it at any point, do drop me a message or email info@performancephysique.co.uk and I'll answer any of those questions for you. We will be live again next Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Bring a coffee. I didn't see anyone saying they've got their coffees with them. If you have got a coffee with you, pop a coffee emoji in now. Do it, guys. Do it. If you're watching on YouTube, and I've missed your question, I will go and answer those questions. Thank you to you guys. There's 4 or 5 of you on Instagram. Thank you very much for watching. Harry, thank you very much for your questions. Right, everyone, please stay safe. I feel like I could stand here and just chat to you all for ages, but I should go now. I've got a wall to go and seal. So please take care. I will see you next Sunday. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye.